Hi everyone. We keep seeking you. Okay. Um. Hi everyone. My name is Uzra, and one second. Am I lagging? Abir, can
A
you hear me
little
fine?
bit, I think, but we can hear you fine.
Just give me one second. Let me
Oh,
fix this.
okay,
Okay.
no issues.
Is it better now? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Perfect. We'll just wait another minute, and then we'll just start afterward. Okay. Okay. Let's begin. Hi, guys. My name is Uzra, and I'm going to be your host for this session today. And just to preface this entire session, my laptop has a camera on the keyboard, which is very weird. I did not know when I bought it, but the camera is on the keyboard, so I might just seem like I'm staring off into the distance like a weirdo, but I swear I'm not, okay? The keyboard is here, but I'm going to be looking at the screen. And I'm also going to be looking to the side to just see the chat because, a lot of questions are on the way. Anyways, let's begin. So, today we have quite a bit on our plate. We're going to begin with an introduction. Then we're going to talk about the 3D bioprinting. What exactly it? Why 3D bioprinting? Why do we really need it, right? What's going on? What's the requirement right now in the field of science for these printers? And how exactly they work? What are the applications? And then we're going to go into a very interesting concept referred to as a human on a chip. And then we're going to talk about the future prospectus, a debate, a lot of things. We'll eventually find out. Okay. So let's begin with me. My name is Uzra. I am a biomedical science student at the University of Birmingham, Dubai. And I'm 19 years old and I also belong to India. But I've lived here in the UAE for over 14 years and I've also finished my school here. And my hobbies, they include not reading, respect to everyone who does like reading, but it's just not me. But I also like swimming, horseback riding, baking, scientific research. Again, I know it's very sad to hear scientific research in those in those hobbies, but I'm telling you, it's really fun. And lastly, also listening to a whole bunch of music. Uh, I also would really, really, really love if this entire session is super interactive and you guys can just say whatever you want in the chat. Right now, I'm a little bit nervous, but as it goes on, you're going to see that I start yapping. So if at any point you think I'm yapping too much, feel free to interrupt me or just put it in the chat that you'd like me to explain with an example or a game, maybe anything of that sort. So, can anyone just put it? Like, you can either unmute or just put your introduction in the chat. Anyone, you can just volunteer. Just tell me about yourself or a little hobby. I don't mind. Is anyone willing to do so? Oh, thank you, Faith. That's so sweet. No one, guys. It's gonna be super awkward if you're just making me sit here. Oh, hi, Mridini. Oh, that's so good. See, that's amazing. I'm glad that we started on such a strong foot. Anyone else? You guys can just put in the chat. I'm gonna be sure to read and acknowledge it. But in the meanwhile, we'll try to move on. And what am I here to talk about, right? It's very nerdy. It's gonna sound very, very, too much scientific. You're gonna get bored maybe. I'm gonna try to make it as interesting as possible. Again, if I yap too much, please interrupt me and just be like, hey, can you explain this with a game or something like a little more fun? But the premise of the entire session is 3D bioprinting and what it's being used for right now. Okay. And again, in this session, we'll break down again too much yap. Let's move on, Uzra. We'll find out. Okay. We have Ramin and Harita. Oh, Frank Ocean Meat. I love him. He's missing right now. I mean, like in the music industry. He's not literally missing. I'm so sorry. Uh, ooh, amazing. That's amazing. I'm so glad. Thank you guys for sharing. Amazing. Okay. So has anyone here ever used a 3D printer or have seen videos on like TikTok or Instagram about a 3D printer? Yes or no? And if so, please tell me how you think it works or just an idea. Or even if you don't know, just guess.
Uzra, just a question. Are you able to see the raised hands, or would you like me to call them out when someone's hand is raised?
Oh, I cannot see them actually. I would love if you could like just call them up.
Okay, and for the people that are raising their hands, guys, you could just unmute your mic and talk. It's
Yeah,
okay.
it's completely fine. I don't think it's offensive to interrupt me. I would love it. It's like a conversation. So it doesn't matter. Please do so. Okay?
Hey, um, I'm not sure
Yes.
if this is how I'm not sure if this is how 3D printing really works, but is it more like you have a mold that is already there, and
Mhm.
then the material that has to be filled inside the mold is poured from the top, more like how some candies are made? Is it more like a mold is there and then the content is filled and it heat cools down and we have the 3D print? Does it work like that?
That's a really good guess. There are some that use molds, but instead of being poured, 3D printing is more about layering. So let's talk about exactly that. That's an amazing guess. Thank you so much for
Actually, I wanted to interrupt. Sorry.
Yes, no worries. Go ahead. Don't
Okay,
say
so
anything.
I mentioned that I've worked with a 3D printer before, and
Mm-hmm.
it's basically where we have our any particular material that gets printed by something called additive manufacturing. So you
Mm-hmm.
design your product or
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to print, and then you link it to your 3D printer, and then it makes layers and layers and layers until your product is done.
Perfect. That's exactly it. You're really like super on the dot. That's correct. 3D printing is also referred to as additive manufacturing. And as the name suggests, it's basically putting layers and layers and layers until you get the object, right? Let me try zooming in. Yeah, of course. Okay, so here, can you guys see each layer? Right? So there's different, and material. There's a nozzle which consists of the material that we're going to use to make the product, and it layers the material on top of one another to make the object. That's typically how most work. We could use a mold, but again, it would still use the additive manufacturing component where we have a nozzle, we have the ink, and that keeps going until it forms the product. Now, 3D bioprinting is very similar to 3D printing, and it actually came about when science also preface, scientists are actually a little very lazy, okay? You might think, oh, they make so many inventions, but they're quite lazy. So the thing about 3D bioprinting was they looked at 3D printers and they were like, how can we use that to our benefit? And that's when 3D bioprinting came along, where they just replaced the inks and the materials of the 3D printer with bio inks. And these bioinks are typically living cells and stuff that's within our body, basically. Okay. And all of this is then combined to form a biomaterial ink. And this is then layered again on top of one another to form whatever we want. And is the same exact process. We just have a different machinery to accommodate for the ink. And the ink itself is also different, and it differs based on thickness, viscosity, how fluid it is, based all of those things. Okay. And think of it like an analogy, okay? So when we have traditional 3D printers, they print mostly phone cases, maybe like um, a glove, something of that sort. But 3D bioprinters, they print mini organs, which is very fun and very, very interesting, especially to me as a biomedical scientist and any of you who are interested in this field in the future. Now, let's get into why. Anyone with any reason? Okay, my answers are right here. Maybe I should. Okay, it's okay if you can steal some answers. But does anyone know or can guess the reason why? Why do you think they even came up with this? What was the reason? You can put it in the chat. Also, I really appreciate all of you for giving me your introductions. That's so nice. Oh, chess. Wow, smart.
Um, Can
Yes,
I
go ahead.
speak? Is that okay?
Yes, of course, go ahead.
Okay, so I think that there. Oh my God. Okay. I think the main reason was organ shortage crisis,
Mm-hmm,
and sometimes people have injuries or burns or diseases that damage their tissues. So tissues can be engineered that way.
mm-hmm,
And since animal testing is uh, almost abusive in a sort.
mm-hmm.
Sorry, animal testing is seen abusive of sort, and animal testing and can also be expensive or ethically controversial. So we can form a better drug testing model this way. So I think
Yes.
those are my reasons.
Yes, perfect. Those are actually two main reasons. So the first one you mentioned, which is whole organ printing, we will get into it in a bit, but we'll begin with your second point, which is safer drug testing, correct? So right now, drugs, by the way, not recreational drugs. Any of you, we mean medicinal drugs only. So medicinal drugs right now are being tested on animals, which are it's not just animals. We start with cells, we start with cell cultures, etc. It's a very cumbersome, a very long process. It requires lots of money and lots of repeats. So you might think that, oh, I just spent this much money on getting my experiment, but no, it doesn't end there. It goes into multiple repeats, clinical trials, all of those things. And did you know 90% of the drugs that are tested on animals, which is one of the last stages, by the way, of forming a full medicine, don't even work. They don't even work on humans. So what was the point, right? It saves so much time and energy for us to think of other routes where we can closely mimic the cells and tissues of our body to see exactly how the drugs would work in our body without having to do all of those things before. And that's exactly why 3D bioprinting came along. So this allows us to print uh, tissues and cells and layers of skin, etc. That allows us to test these medicines directly on them to see how the body would react, to see if it's allergic, to see if there's any inflammation of any of those sorts of things. Basically, it allows us to test this directly instead of going through that route. So it saves us a lot of time, and it's also more ethical, which is another discussion. The bioethics, we won't be getting into that too much because it's very complex and complicated. Okay, next we have wound healing and grafts. Now, this is very interesting. So as we know, there's so many burn patients around the world, and these burns are often extremely hard to treat and they're very, very painful. So even if they are requiring surgery, it's a very complicated surgery, and it often requires donors, which is skin donors, and it's going to be painful even for those donors, and there's a lot of healing time. It's just a very grueling process, right? So by having 3D printed skin grafts, so these, like someone mentioned earlier, we have the mold, but here we use the heart, okay? I mean, sorry, not the heart, the hand. And we are directly able to print the skin on top of the hand, so it fits exactly onto your hand. And this is tailor made to the victim, or like the burn victim. And as a result, we can get a graft that is placed on top of the skin. We have lots of conditions, we have lots of treatments that follow with it. And this allows for less rejection. Now, what does rejection mean? Basically, when we get skin from a donor and we just put it on, it's not going to work that way. Okay, our body is innately made to reject any external substances from entering, and as a result causing inflammation. There's lots of white blood cells that come, there's T killer cells, there's lots of biology behind it, but basically what it tries to do is that it tries to protect the body, and by protecting the body we have lots of side effects. So to prevent these side effects, we can use skin that is literally made from our own cells. So we take a few of the patient's cells, we print the graft, and we lay it on top, and then we have a bunch of other procedures. And as a result, we have less rejection, faster healing, and less scarring, which blows my mind. I don't know if it does for you, but this is just so interesting to me. It's so cool. Didn't see the chat. Yes, perfect. Okay. Next we have research and experimentation. I know I'm yapping a bit right now, but trust me, guys, you have something coming up. Just give me 2 minutes. Okay, so research and experimentation. Now, do you guys think we could just go up to someone and be like, hey, can I get a piece of your brain? Of course not, right? I want to test my jaw. Can I have a piece of your heart? Oh, obviously, we can't do that. At least right now, not we can't do that ever. Never mind. Okay, so the problem right now is that scientists, we cannot ethically and safely take tissues from living people. So the solution is to use 3D bioprinted organoids. Now, organoids are very, very tiny organs. You might think, oh, they're tiny. No, they're tiny. And these organs are basically used for, again, drugs, cancer growth, which is a very good one. So we can use cancer cells, we can infect the cancer cells into the organoid that we printed, and we can see how fast the cancer progresses, how the cancer cells are reacting to certain drugs and growth factors, blah, blah, blah. It basically allows us to stimulate the conditions within our body in a mini form to be able to see how well something would work, right? How well the treatment would work. And this is a breakthrough in terms of finding treatments for certain conditions and diseases like cancer. Next is big vision. So the big vision is full organ printing. Of course, like someone mentioned earlier, to sort of curb the shortages that we have with organs right now. There's so many waiting lists. There's so much. It's a sad reality, of course. And by having a method to print an entire organ that fits right perfectly into the patient and is no autoimmunity. So again, autoimmunity is the auto rejection thing that I mentioned earlier, and there's no side effects at all, right? That would be amazing. But the problem is our tech right now, we cannot do this yet. I feel like, in my personal opinion, it's very close. Maybe in the next 10 to 15 years, we might see this happening. But as of right now, the tech is just not equipped for this. And we will discuss why in the coming few slides. Okay, if you guys have any questions or anything that you'd like to add or any interesting fact, just put it in the chat and we'll discuss. Okay. And the last one is my favorite. It's the human on a chip concept. And this, I have a whole slide dedicated to this because I love this concept so much. And it's basically, it's allows us to study how now, if we have an organoid, okay, and it's very tiny, it's the heart, and we apply a drug to the heart, okay, and we see how it reacts. Perfect, everything's working well. But do you guys know that within our body, we have multiple other organs, right? And the liver actually metabolizes these drugs or breaks these drugs down. That's what it means. So how fast the liver breaks the drug down determines how much effect it has. So the faster the liver works, the less amount of drug we have in the body at the end of it, and there's less amount of effect that we see on the heart. So we need to have a method where we can determine the dose and determine the type of drug, all of those sorts of things, in a way that we can see the effect on the entirety of the body at once. And this again saves us time, money, all the same thing as I mentioned earlier, right? So this is where human on chip comes in, and I'm going to leave that as suspense. We're going to discuss this later. This is my favorite part, so we're going to let it be. Okay, now we talk about how. Anyone can just think of any steps of how you think this would work. Just the bioprinter. And this is a bioprinter, by the way. Yeah, anyone. Just put it in the chat. Just interrupt, just talk. I don't mind. We talked about the layering method. Anything else that you'd like to add? Oops.
Do you mean the designing or the printing?
No, the entirety, any process, like you can just be a brief about it, just different steps. You don't have to necessarily explain the
Okay.
steps. You can just be like, how do I 3D print an organ? Yes.
Right. So for that, initially we have to use different computer-aided design softwares. Like I think there's Blender, Fusion 360, and Tinkercad, some of which I've worked with. And you basically design in these softwares whatever you want. For example, an organ in this case, and you have full control over the dimensions, shapes, features of whatever you want. And once you're done with that, the model gets sliced. So basically it gets broken down into horizontal layers, and that forms tool paths basically for the printer to work in. And after that, you set up your printer and you calibrate however you want so that the printer automatically follows every movement and instruction, be that like nozzle temperature, you have your bed temperature, and where and how the printer is going to move. And then the rest of the process of printing is mostly automated. And, you can have a few trials to make sure that your initial prototype and the final one is different and its best form. And after that, there's this cleanup process and all that. That's all I know.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's amazing. You have a very nice understanding of it. Let me just tweak a few things in terms of bioprinting, but 3D bioprinting, you're perfect. Okay, so to begin with, now let's talk about it like this. Okay, if we have a building, okay, we want to build a building. Okay, Do you guys think that we could all just take a bunch of bricks and then just put them on the ground where the building is supposed to be and be like, hey, yeah, here's your building? Of course not. Way before that, we would require a plan. We would require an architectural design. And that's exactly how 3D bioprinting begins as well. So we have a computer-controlled design or a computer-aided design. So like the name suggests, we make a design on the computer, which is very, very intricate. You might think I'm just going to draw a heart and be like, yeah, 3D printer, please print this. Of course not. It's going to be very detailed. It needs to have every single connection that you would typically see on the cells, on the skin, on the heart, whatever you're trying to make, right? And trust me, there's a lot. The brain itself, by the way, has over 100 billion connections. That is with a B. So do you think it's physically possible for us to make a computer-aided design with 100 billion connections and print a brain? That's the reason why it's not possible yet. So, but we can do it in the computer control design for more simpler structures, like the skin graft that I mentioned earlier. And recently, I think last week actually, there was a breakthrough where they were able to print a retina, like the layer that covers your iris. And by doing so, they solve or basically treat a lot of diseases that have degeneration of the retina, which is crazy, amazing, beautiful. Okay, so this design is again made in your computer. It's very intricate, very detailed. It requires lots of planning, lots of time and money. And this is then it's a 3D structure. And this again is cut into tiny, tiny slices. Okay, and by tiny slices, I mean tiny slices. And this then acts as a Google Maps because it's now 2D. Okay, it goes from a 3D structure into a 2D structure, and it acts as a Google Maps for the 3D printer. And the 3D printer's nozzle follows exactly the steps and is able to form layers on top of one another. Okay, and this layer, it basically tells the 3D printer where to place each droplet, and the nozzle then moves in an XYZ axis. So that basically means it goes, can you guys see this? Yeah. So it goes like this, like this, like this, like this, and then it goes one layer on top. So it moves vertically, and then it moves again. So that's the y-axis, and then moves on its x-axis, and then again, and then it keeps going layer by layer. So that's how it works. And all of this is needed for precision, structural integrity, and reproducibility. Now, what does reproducibility mean? It basically means the ability to make the entire structure the same way, the exact same thing again. Okay, that means there should be no errors. We cannot afford any mistakes in things that are literally going into your body or on your body, right? So that's why. Okay, perfect. We have a controlled computer-aided design. I'm not going to get too techy with it, so I'm not going to spare you. I'm going to spare you guys with some details, but this is the premise of where we begin with. Okay, then we have the bio ink. Okay, I mentioned at the beginning of this session what goes into the bio ink. Can anyone just remember and just put it in the chat? I would love to see if someone knows exactly what goes in. Yes, it's cells. But do you think we could put any cells? You think we could just have like a bunch of cells lying in the lab and be like, yeah, let's put this in bioink? Or do they have to, is there any property that needs to be taken care of? Living cells. Perfect. Living cells and stem cells. Amazing. That's exactly right. The cells of what we're printing, of course, maybe I framed the question wrong. I'm sorry. But yes, the living cells. Now, we need to ensure that these cells are living. Okay. There can be a few that are not, because of technical errors. We can never achieve 100% accuracy in the lab, but majority, or at least 90% of them, have to be living. Okay, and they have to be able to sustain themselves. And the way they sustain themselves is through stem cells and other nutrients and all of that we find. We'll talk about it in a bit. Okay, yeah. So we have living cells, we have stem cells. Now, to those of you who don't know what stem cells are basically those kind of cells that are able to differentiate or develop into different kinds of cells. Okay, other types of cells. And these can be either multipotent, they can be pluripotent, and by it basically means they can either develop into specific types, only a few specific types of cells, or they can develop into any and all cells. And these are very important for regeneration purposes, because if we have a cut or a slight wound or an injury, we need our cells to be able to regenerate and fix that injury, right? So that's the reason we require stem cells. And also in the case of 3D bioprinting, because it takes a while to print the entire thing, Obviously, there's going to be a few that die. I was going to say pass away, like I'm referring to them with respect. Anyways, so there's obviously going to be a few that die, and we need stem cells within them to be able to regenerate and fix it. Okay, so that's extremely important. That's the components you find in every single bioink. Now, the different other components are what change the ratios. So by changing ratios, we can get different types of inks, and this allows them to be more thick, more fluid, all of that. Okay, then we have biomaterials. So biomaterials are gel-like substances. So within our body, our cells, our organs, we consist of cells, but between the cells, we have sort of scaffolding. And by scaffolding, it basically means structural support. Okay, and this structural support is given to the organ by different kinds of substances, such as fibrin, collagen, all of those. I'm not going to get into the details, but yes. And we have fibers and substances that look or function similar to those, and those include gelatin and alginate as well. And these kind of form an extracellular matrix, which is again extracellular outside the cells, and they hold the cells together. And again, it's very important for us to be able to print the product. Okay, and then we have biological signals, and these are growth factors, proteins, chemical cues, all of which is required for the cell to grow. And also, it's it also prevents diseases. So if we use this on a skin patch, it would and we get infected by disease, they would consist of all the things that our body naturally has to be able to protect our body from it. Okay. And the key requirements of a good bioink is, again, biocompatibility. They must support cell health, printability, because they must be able to squeeze out of the nozzle onto the cell plate or whatever to be able to print the product, and cross-linkability. Now, cross-linkability is something I'll get into in a bit. Okay, now this is a content-heavy slide. Okay, so in basically modalities. Okay, so now we're choosing bioprinting modalities. Modalities are different types of bioprinters, or the different types of methods we can use to print our stuff. Can anyone name any 3D printer modalities they know of, or just a normal like paper printer modality they know of? You could just guess. You could literally make up stuff. It doesn't matter. I would be really happy to know your answers. Okay, I'll just go ahead. Okay, so one of the the most common one is inkjet. So inkjet printers are what you usually see in your house. The one, if anyone has a printer at their house, those are usually the kind of, yeah, inkjet and laser, perfect. Yes, those are the most common types of printers that we have. And the same exact thing applies to bioprinters as well. We have inkjet, we have laser assisted, and we also have extrusion bioprinting. Now, these three are very common, and there's not really any other one that I can think of necessarily, but these are the most common ones in 3D bioprinting, and they all have different purposes because they print different kinds of materials. Okay, and we'll begin with inkjet. Inkjet, inkjet. The ink, the bio ink here is very fluid like, so it's very thin, and these printers can generally not handle a very thick bio ink. Okay, and the way, okay, let me just go to the previous slide. Yeah, so the way most bio inks work is that they have more cells, less fibers. Now the fibers is what I told you about, is the extracellular matrix substances. Okay, so we have more cells, less fibers. Here we have less cells, more fibers, is biomaterial ink. The more cells we have, the more thick and viscous it gets. Okay, the thicker the bio ink is, we can say that the more amounts of cells are present within it. I just repeated the same thing twice, didn't I? Okay, anyways, so inkjet bioprinting deals with majority of biomaterial inks, which is less cells, more biomaterials. Again, okay, the name, it's right there. Okay, so this, how it works is that we have a nozzle, okay, and it shoots out tiny droplets of the bio ink onto the plate or whatever, and this allows for printing substances that are more thin, and they're not very susceptible to damage. Okay, and these are examples of skin layers, which is skin patches like we discussed earlier. And the advantages of this is that it's very fast, it's affordable, and it's very great again for thin layered tissues. But the limitations is that it cannot handle thick and sticky bio inks, which are necessary for making products or organs that are more resistant, are more hard, and more resistant to pressure as compared to that of this. And then these are more prone to abrasions and scratches as well, by the way, the ones that the inkjet bioprinters usually print. And the heat and pressure may harm sensitive cells, but this is because we have thermal and piezoelectric pulses. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. So piezoelectric pulses is basically when we have a change in shape of a crystal. So let me zoom in here. So this is a piezoelectric or thermal crystal. And when we have pressure that is applied to this, it causes a change in shape, or electricity that is applied to this, it causes a change in shape, and this causes further pressure to be generated, and this results in the squeezing out of the bio ink. But again, this happens in droplets, not in a continuous flow. So inkjet bioprinting is again very accurate, but we have better, more accurate bioprinter modalities. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is extrusion bioprinting. Extrusion bioprinting is the most commonly used. It prints out continuous strands. So as opposed to inkjet, this one puts out ink in a continuous manner, so it's constantly flowing. And this allows for printing of very thick, hard materials such as bones. Okay. Now, if we break our bone, if we fall somewhere and we injure our knee, and a piece of our knee bone is shattered completely, so there's no rescue. We cannot put it back together. It's just not possible. What are we supposed to do then? So this is when we use extrusion bioprinting, where it can print out continuous strands. It puts out thick viscous bio ink, and it prints out the piece of bone, and we can insert it into this one instead of metal or something else that we currently use right now. And that allows us for completely healing the knee without any auto rejection, like I mentioned earlier. So let's go through the advantages again. Large, sturdy structures. It handles viscous bio inks, but the limitations is at lower resolution and shear stress. Now, because we have constant flow and there's lots of pressure that is generated within the extrusion nozzle, the cells, okay, shear stress is when we apply stress or pressure directly like this on the cells. So think of this as a cell, and if we apply pressure like this is referred to as shear stress. So because we have constant flow and pressure generated with the nozzle, it sort of acts as shear stress on the cells that are already laid down. And as a result, it might damage them. But it's very rare. It's not a major cause of errors in the case of extrusion bioprinting. Lastly, we have laser-assisted bioprinting. And this is a laser pulse. So this is my favorite one. So this is when we have a layer of the ink, bio ink, it just basically lies there, okay? And then we have a laser that points directly on the laser, and it has a donor layer, an energy absorbing layer, and the bubble layer. So what happens is when we have a laser, which is usually heat, it subjects the region with lots of heat, and when it exerts heat on this portion, the energy is absorbed, and that forms a pressure bubble in the bottom layer, and as a result, the bio ink is deposited directly onto the region where the laser points, like right below it. So this is very, very accurate. It sounds very complicated, but when this is going in super high speed, it's very accurate, okay? And anything that I'm missing out? Yes, this is very important for microvascular structures, like the capillary networks, organs, and even neuronal nerve networks, blah, 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 blah. And the advantages, again, very precise, no clogging, it's very gentle. Also, it does not provide lots of shear stress on this one because we have no nozzle in this case. And the limitations is that it's expensive and complex to set up, and it's not very widely available yet because we still have a lot of advancements to be made in how this layer is suspended, how it is depositing the ink, all of those things. Okay, now we've pushed aside the boring part. Now we get into the fun part. Okay, layer by layer printing and deposition and post-printing maturation. So again, the layer by layer printing we saw earlier. I'm going to quickly show you guys a slide. So this was actually, oh, let me pause. So this was actually coincidentally last week in my university. So I studied at University of Birmingham, and BioX, the company that makes 3D bioprinters and bioinks and everything, they came to our university for a demo session, and they actually showed us exactly how these printers work in real time. So this picture you see here is the lovely lady. She's loading the bio ink into the printer. So this is the nozzle. So she's loading it in. And this is the layer by layer. And this is the post-product, by the way. So let me show you guys the video. This is so cool, guys. Let me zoom in if I can. Yeah. Can you guys see this? It's going layer by layer in the x-axis. and then it's going on top, and then it goes again. Let's just watch it. Yeah. So it forms layers and layers and layers on top of one another, and it eventually prints it out. And this is actually a skin graft. They're trying to make a skin graft by cross-linking the strands, and then eventually it forms the skin. Okay, wonderful. So let's go back. So we have layer by layer printing and deposition, like we just saw in the video. I'm not going to explain too much. We literally just saw it. Please stop yapping. Okay, and then we have cross-linking. Now, cross-linking is very important because if we have a bunch of bricks, imagine we just build on top of one another, we have a bunch of bricks and we layer them on top of one another. Do you think it's going to stand? Do you think if I just push it, it's going to fall off, right? The bricks are just going to fall off because there's no cement that's holding them together. That's the reason we require the cement. And this cement in this case is cross-linking, and cross-linking is usually done by UV light. Thermal gelation. Gelation is basically when we heat up gel and we just put it on, and then it's like it solidifies and all of that. And then we have ionic cross linking, where we use ion solutions, and then we add it to the printed material, and this cross links and stabilizes it, and basically allows to maintain the structural integrity, and it prevents the layers from collapsing, and like again, it says it in the name, structural integrity. Yeah, and also this is very, very important for substances which require lots of capillaries. Now, capillaries supply blood to the different organs. So without that, we would literally not have a fully functioning organ. Okay, so we require blood to reach every single cell within the organ, without which the organ itself wouldn't function. So to be able to have the structural integrity that holds these capillaries in place to supply blood to different regions of the organ, we require this cross-linking, because without it, it would be very wiggly. It would sort of displace the capillaries. It would just not work. Okay. Step 5 is post-printing maturation. And again, this is basically to just give it some time to relax. You just let it, it's basically like tanning. You just let it, do its thing for a while, and then it looks nice. Okay, so this is post-printing maturation. You just let it be in a bioreactor. Bioreactor is a fancy word for a place with a certain temperature and control of oxygen and everything. So we control the temperature at 37 degrees Celsius, and then we also do oxygen and CO2 control, and we put a nutrient-rich media, which is a solution that contains lots of nutrients, and this allows the conditions to be made, which is very similar to the conditions within our body. And this basically helps in the entire structure to grow, proliferate, to stabilize itself, because we need to let it be alone for a while. That's it. That's pretty much it in this how to do it. It allows them to adhere to one another, communicate. Yes, that's all. Okay. Okay, is the same thing? Yes. Now, what can we print today? Now, can anyone just unmute or just put it in the chat? I would really like if everyone participates in this one and just tell me what you think we can print, 3D bioprint. Anything you would think that, oh, it might be possible right now. You're not sure. It could be as creative as possible. It might be something I've never thought of before. Anything, just put it in the chat or unmute and let me know. Anyone? Anything. It could be literally anything, any part of your body you might think, oh, it actually seems pretty plausible to be printed out through a 3D bioprinter. Cartilage and living tissues. Yes, amazing. That is very true. It is currently being done, sorry. And cartilage is very important for so many different structures in the body, right? So by having this now is like, whoa, we can literally solve 100 things or 100 issues by just having a printed cartilage. Crazily enough, it's so mind blowing. Teeth. Teeth is a good one. Teeth, obviously, we do have veneers which are 3D printed. So I don't think I don't think it's like uh, it's impossible. I'm not really sure if we have like the gums and everything that are 3D printed yet. I don't think so. But teeth, I'm pretty sure is possible. Bones, of course, yes. Bones are one of the most leading 3D printing uses right now. Bones, yes. Anything else?
I don't know if
Yes.
it counts, but maybe we can do some 3D bioprinting for environmental repair. For example, there are a lot of coral reefs that are damaged, so maybe they can be 3D printed, or we can
Mhm.
use plant tissue even to restore like damaged ecosystems, I guess.
Yes, possibly we can. But do you think we really require that? What if we could just provide because coral reefs, I'm not sure if you guys know, but coral reefs are very, very they're self-regenerative. So if you give them some times, they're gonna be fine. So do you think it's important for us to do it right now? It's important for us to focus on. Yes, of course we can print it, but why do you think? Do you think it's important? Okay, I'm gonna let that be in the chat for a while. Organs right now, like I mentioned previously, are not. We cannot print full organs, like the full size organs that we have in our body, but we can print tiny mini organoids. So you're on the right track. One thing that I didn't know, so I was recently scrolling on LinkedIn. Okay, let's not judge me. I don't scroll on Instagram. I scroll on LinkedIn, which is very depressing. But on LinkedIn, I actually saw this article where they 3D printed a year. Okay, and it literally is an entire year, which is one of the greatest breakthroughs because it you can use this as a donor, so it can solve deafness for many individuals if this becomes a fully fledged treatment. But this is still in the research stages. It's not like a treatment thing yet, but the fact that they 3D printed an entire year is crazy, right? I scroll on LinkedIn too. You're fine. Yeah, I love LinkedIn. It's so much more fun, right? It's so productive. Like I feel productive even though I'm wasting time, just like endlessly scrolling. But yes. Anyways, so that's amazing. Anything else that I can think of? Hmm. Yeah, the cornea thing. The retina thing I mentioned earlier. Harsh climate. Right. Harsh climate change. Yeah, you're right. Regeneration itself is a threat. Correct. You're absolutely right. Vocal cords. Okay. Now, the thing about vocal cords is that they're a type of arteries. Okay. So, arteries are just large. Uh, I wouldn't want to use this word as a biomedical scientist, but I literally can't think of anything else but a pipe. So, it's like a vocal cord, it's like a thick, a long pipe. But the problem with that is, again, it's too big. It has too many connections, it has too many nerves, it requires a lot of muscle. It's just simply not possible as of right now with our tech. But soon enough it'll be possible. If we have a small region, small part of the vocal cord, of course we can, which is quite slow. Correct. I did not know that. Thank you so much for telling me. That's amazing. So yes, I think we can do that. I think hopefully in the future we can do that. I would have to. We honestly, after this session, let's search it up together and we'll see how, if it's possible to use the bio inks, because I'm not really sure about the coral reef printing with the bio inks and the extracellular matrix materials. But we'll see after this session if we have some time. We'll search it up together because I'm not an expert in coral reefs, as you guys can clearly tell. But that's amazing. That's such a nice thing to think about. We'll get into it after a bit. Okay, let's move on. So, what can we print today? So we have skin and wound grafts that we mentioned earlier. We can use customized skin patches, patient's own cells to treat injuries and of that sort, cartilage and bone scaffolds, again, to fabricate structures like knee cartilage, jaw, if someone breaks their jaw in a very unfortunate car accident or something, we can literally print a small part of it and we can put it back in. And these constructs are very, very important, right? They save us, save people's lives, basically. Then we have vascular tissues and blood vessels. Like I mentioned previously, every single structure within our body requires blood supply. And without these blood vessels, we literally cannot accomplish anything. We cannot accomplish a 3D printed organ at all. So, by being able to perfect the blood vessel architecture and by able to perfect the 3D bioprinting of a blood vessel, we just simply easily advance like 10 steps in the field of getting to make a full organ. Okay, so that is what is in works right now. While we speak, it's in works right now to perfect the blood vessel printing and the capillaries and the arterioles and all of those sorts of things to be able to one day print entire organs, because that's one of the major setbacks that we have right now. Okay, organoids for research and drug testing, again, like we mentioned previously. And I also talked about how we have neurodegenerative disorders because the brain itself has so many connections, 100 billion connections over of them, and many of these neurodegenerative disorders we don't even know what the true cause of them is, right? So by one day being able to print the brain by just looking at the architecture to an extent, we can sort of figure out by applying, because we can't take a brain and we can't apply a bunch of experiments and a bunch of stimulus to it and see how it reacts, right? We require 3D printed organs. So by having such a thing, we can find out the reason why. We can understand the background of so many diseases, why they progress, why they even begin with in the first place, and all of those sorts of things. Okay, so these are a few pictures of what I was talking about. So first one, let me zoom in, is the wound closure. So we can see here we have the bioprinted skin. Then this is how it progresses, right? It literally closes up. It looks completely normal. There's barely any scarring. It looks amazing. But in hydrogel only, so this is without that much. It's hydrogel. It's like a different type of bio ink, but it has very less amounts of cells as compared to that of the rest. And again, this one as well, it closes up, but there's more scarring in this case. Whereas if we let the wound just be and do like the normal treatment procedures, it also ends up in a bit of scarring. So you guys can see the difference between them. And also, it's you the healing process also is much better in the case of bioprinted skin as compared to that of just leaving it alone. Okay. Then we have the bones. This is so cool. Look, so we have the bone. We have like a structure of the bone. This is probably like a again a mold. So this is a mold of the bone, and we have a certain structure that we require, and this is where we print in the material, and this is how it looks when you first print it, and then we do the cross-linking and the bioreactor stabilization, and this is how it ends up, and it pretty much heals amazing. It looks very cute, very cute. What are those choice of words? Okay, guys. Okay, this is a capillary, or I think it's an arteriole actually. It's not a capillary, it's an arteriole. So arterioles are very tiny versions of arteries. Arteries are those big pipes I talked to you about. And when these keep branching and branching and branching, they form arterioles and then eventually capillaries. And this arteriole is the size of literally a 50 fils coin. And this is what is possible right now. We are literally unable to go ahead of this right now because of our technical limitations. But eventually we will, I believe so. But this is what we can do right now, and this is how it looks. So this is where the blood flows, and we insert this. We ensure that it is placed. It's not inserted. It's sort of in the computer-aided design itself, and this allows us for just keeping the organ alive. And my favorite part, yeah. So this is the human on a chip concept that I was talking about. Am I making this up? I swear I'm not. This is a real thing. It's amazing. Okay. Human on a chip. It does not mean a human standing on a chip. That was a terrible joke. I'm sorry I put that in. But a human on a chip. So it's basically, I just told you that we can print tiny mini organoids, right? Now we can literally place these organoids in specific portions of a cell plate, which is in this case a chip. Okay. And in this chip here, can you guys see my cursor, by the way? Can someone just say yes real quick, if you can?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, okay. So you see, there's here, I'm just going to name a few examples. I'm not sure what this actually contains, but let me tell you. So we have maybe the lungs here. These are the lungs, maybe. This is the brain. We have the heart, maybe. So all of these things together are the mini organoids. These are mini organoids that are placed in these tiny wells that you guys can see here. Okay? And we can apply a drug on these chip on a hole, and we can see how it acts. We can see how the different organoids, which are very, very tiny, like I mentioned earlier, behave. And this together, it gives us the insight about how the entire process works, correct? And this is very, very important right now because drug testing literally can move many, many years ahead by just having this chip, which can just save us so much time. We don't need to provide predetermined experiments on one organ, then another organ, and then see the correlation. And there's so many different effects in between, like the immune system, like growth factors, etc., that act on different parts of the body that don't necessarily act on the other part of the body that we tested. So it just reduces the margin of error greatly by having this human on a chip concept, which I don't know if you guys understand, but this I love. This is amazing. This is such a cool technology because we literally have a tiny human on a chip, and we can use this to get treatments of all sorts. We can test amazing drugs and amazing possible procedures, etc., on a tiny, tiny chip, which is so cool. Okay. And this again is, by the way, connected through microfluidic channels, which is exactly how it is in our body. So we have different kinds of, we have the lymph system, we have the blood, etc. And all of these are present within our body. So we have the exact same thing, which is here. So the drug that is acting on the brain, for example, is sort of drained by this microfluidic channel and taken to different parts, maybe the kidney over here, which metabolizes a drug, like I mentioned earlier. And this provides us an insight, a total insight on how it works in our body, and it gives us amazing results, much better than we would if we just did the experiments on separate organs and tried to find a correlation, because that would require a lot of statistical tests as well. Okay, so let's go through it again. We have a tiny liver, for example, that can break down the drugs. We have a mini lung that reacts to pollution. We have heart tissue strip that actually beats, and all of them, they basically talk to each other with the liquid flow. And this is through the blood and through the lymph system that carry all these different cells and all these growth factors and all these signaling molecules, etc. And therefore, we have a mini biological system. How cool is that? Does someone agree with me? I said that maybe 85 times. But how cool is that? That we have a mini system of us on a chip. Okay. Yes. Oh, this is amazing for personalized medicine as well. If anyone knows what personalized medicine is, can someone just tell me real quick about personalized medicine? Hmm. Okay, so let me explain personalized medicine. So, personalized medicine, like the name suggests, is personalized to the individual. So, for example, if there's me and my twin, for example, we, okay, not my twin, we have identical genetic information. Okay, me and my sibling, okay, we do not have completely identical genetic information within us, right? And by having, and if we have the same exact disease, unfortunately, hope it's not the case ever, but if we have the same exact disease, personalized medicine should suggest that we have different treatments, even though we have the same exact disease. But the personalized medicine basically provides us with treatments that are tailored to your genes, to your body system, to your height, your weight, all of those things. It's very personalized, so it ensures that it works. It guarantees a higher success rate as compared to that of just a normal treatment that is given to a bunch of people who have the same disease, and due to genetic variations in some, due to hereditary changes in some others, it might just not work as effectively as it does in some other people, right? So by personalized medicine, we can treat a lot of diseases. We can provide better treatment and better care for different kinds of conditions, right? And this is the chip, right? So we can use these drugs, we can test it on mini organoids that are specific to the patient, and we can see if the drug works well, or we should probably take another route. You get it? So this is amazing for personalized medicine as well. Okay. Next, what is next in the future? Now, can you guys just tell me anything that you might want to see in the future that is currently not possible that can be 3D bioprinted? Someone mentioned the coral reefs, which is an amazing example. Anything else that you would love to see maybe bioprinted in the near future? Anyone? In the future, I would like to see, imagine if we could bioprint eyes, like complete eyes. Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be so cool? And the fact that we're almost there, okay, we're not almost there, we're not even close, but we printed one layer of it, which is very cool. But if we could print entire eyes, we would literally have donors for so many people. And this would be tailor made to the individual with blindness, right? Because right now we have donors, but the thing is, the eyes just don't fit right, or there's no it's much more complex than just simply any other part of the body, I mean. So by having 3D bioprinted eyes, it would be so cool, it would be amazing. Extinct animals, yes, that is a little bit yeah, that's not possible, I don't think so. because we do not have their cells. We require their cells. We require their living cells, which is just impossible to get. We could, what if we printed creatures? We use a computer aided design, but we could print new animals. Like we could combine a rat and a tiger. No, that's a bit far. We could combine like a grasshopper and a butterfly, and we could have like a hopping butterfly. I don't know, something. We could just combine animals. Wouldn't that be amazing? Like if we could have a computer aided design that just made like creatures of some sorts that combine different animals, and we could 3D print those. That would be amazing, right? But I really like the extinct animals thought. That shows that you're being really creative. That's amazing. Anything else that I can? Yeah, I like the combining different creatures. We could anything related to humans. Imagine we could just all just give ourselves like, imagine a 3D print like wings. You could go dystopian with it. You could literally make up like random stuff. We could give ourselves the ability like just wings to fly with, or an extra finger. Whoever needs an extra finger, I don't know why. Anything, we could do so many things with it. There's endless possibilities. There's always endless possibilities. Okay. Control future. So what's next? Again, so this is again too much. Yeah, we'll go into the example. So the why exactly is not possible. Like I said earlier, we have to have blood vessels and connections, which is just not in terms of tech right now. So when we take this example, we have a real heart. Okay, now the real heart, it isn't just a shape. It needs to pump. It needs to be able to generate energy. It needs to be now. Also, did you guys know that the heart, if even if you like sever a nerve that supplies the heart can still pump on its own because it has autorhythmicity. Okay, so and this is because of the amount of nerves and connections that it has within it, the ability to transfer that signal that it generates on one node to different nodes, and as a result, the heart is able to pump. So when we print a heart, we need to ensure that all of these connections are made, all of these blood supplies are fulfilled, and we have every single wiring or plumbing thing, arteries, nerves, etc., that actually make it work. Because without it, we would have a heart that is printed, but we wouldn't have a working heart. So that's why right now it's a bit impossible. And also, a heart itself is very big in comparison of a 3D bioprinting product usually, and because of this, we just need to allow it to. It's not going to be viable, right? Imagine you just have a fully printed heart, but by the time it takes it to completely be printed, don't you think the cells would start to die at the bottom? They would start to even if there are stem cells, they're not in the bodily condition. They're still on that cell plate being printed. So don't you think it would die? It would not work. It just seems a bit impossible. So we need to come up with methods that are able to preserve the product that is being printed, is able to form the right connections, is able to form a complicated structural design, all of those sort of things, which is a bit out of reach right now, but I hope it's possible soon. So right now, scientists can print small, tiny, mini versions which are viable, which remain alive and are fully working, but big organs just not yet. I wish though, that would be amazing, but not yet. Okay, now is the pretty much the last thing in our session today. Anyone? Okay, so I would love if you guys could volunteer. So we're gonna have a debate, and it's not gonna be like a proper like teams and everything. We're just gonna have a bunch of people who want to speak about the pro part, and then we're gonna have a bunch of people who want to speak about the against part, right? So now we have a dream part, which is BioDream, and this basically talks about how 3D bioprinting will revolutionize medicine and improve lives. And this argues that we should push the technology forward, but with responsibility. But the other side, they're going to argue that it believes that the tech could go too far, which is both ethically, socially, biologically, etc. And it basically talks about the negatives of it. Okay, I'm going to give you guys some 5 minutes maybe. You guys can choose your side, put it in the chat right now. Tell me if you guys are biodream or biodystopian, or if you can be both. And then I'm going to give you 5 minutes to just prepare your side, and then you could pitch it to me, and I'm going to decide who has the best, most convincing side. You guys are going to win absolutely no prizes from this. This is simply for fun. But please do participate. Otherwise, I'm going to start nominating. I'm literally going to go through the participants. I'm going to be one of those teachers that torture you during online meetings. And I'm going to choose some of you. Okay. You can be on either side. Okay. Haley is on either side against the topic. Okay. Zainab wants to be against the topic. Wonderful. Amazing. You guys are so cool for starting off. I absolutely love the engagement. Yes. Team Bio Dream. Amazing. Okay. Bunch of you can put in your side on the chat. I'm going to give you exactly 5 minutes. We are 7:01 right now, 7:01 p.m. We'll come back in 5 minutes and we will just talk about either side and we'll just have a good discussion. Right? Okay. See you guys in 5. And also this is the last part. Don't worry. I'm not gonna hold you guys back any longer. But yes. I'm really sorry for taking a bit extra time. Yeah, we'll just end with this small debate. It's not going to be very long. I'm just going to let you guys speak your part for a bit and then we'll end the meeting. Yes. Okay. Okay, guys, you have 1 more minute. Okay, let's start. Anyone wants to start? There's Zainab who's written a bunch of cool points in the chat. Anyone who wants to speak uh, about theirs, please go ahead. Yes. Okay. Uh, yes. I'm gonna call you Faith just because I don't want to mispronounce your name. Faith, you can start because you're in Team BioDream, which is the first part. So please go ahead and explain your part. I don't like. I'm all yours.
Okay, so I'm Team ProDream.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying that 3D bioprinting is a fantastic new technology that will help people live healthier lives.
Mm-hmm.
So the points that I put to support that. So first of all, we won't have to wait for new organs. So right now people die because they can't get an organ transplant. So 3D bioprinting can let us print new organs for them, specifically made for their body, so they don't have to wait about their body like rejecting a new organ. I said we also have personalized medicine, which we just learned about. And this is really when, it's just getting medicine personalized for yourself. So with bioprinting, doctors can test the medicine on tiny printed versions of the organs, right? And they can see like what works best before giving it to you. And my other point was faster and better drug testing. So instead of using like animals to test out new medicines, we can use like printed human tissues. And this would also be better for the animals. And this often gets us more accurate results because of the human tissue. So it also speeds up the process of getting new medicines to people who need them. Sorry. My last point, I believe, was fixing damaged body parts. So we can print new skin for burn victims, new cartilage for bad knees, or even fix damaged nerves. So this obviously just means less pain and better recovery for many injuries and diseases.
Amazing. I can totally tell that you've listened to the entire session. I'm super, super appreciative. That's amazing. You've literally covered every single point we've discussed. That's amazing. This Sudinas, anyone, if you have anything else that you'd like to add to what she just said, I would love to hear it. It's okay if you guys just want to stick to the chat. I will just read it off, no worries. But if you'd like to say it out loud, I don't mind that either. Yeah, Sudhinas has mentioned a really good point in the end, which is every new idea has some bad sides, but we can fix them. We should not stop the good ideas because of fear. If we use it with care, it can change the world. That's amazing. That's such a good quote. And that's all science is about, correct? It's about having new ideas, making them possible, and just allowing us to move forward. Amazing. Anyone else on the biodream side before we move on to biodystopia? And you can even go on the dystopian, like you can go in the dream side of it where you're like one day we can print fully functional like animals. We can literally print a pet, which is unnecessary, like completely unnecessary, but still we can print complete human beings, which is whoa, insane. Why would we need that? We need more people? No, I don't think so. We have enough. But yeah, you can go in that direction as well if you'd like. You could just be a little more creative. We'll come back to this if you guys do have such points. Just put it in the chat. Like, I have another point about biodream. Okay, we'll begin with biodystopia. So we have Zainab. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so there are a lot of reasons why I think that bioprinting can be towards would be leaning towards the negative side. And that is because if we speak financially, which is one of the main points, is that it's very high in cost. So as I explained already in the chat, that bioprinters, bioinks, and the cell culture, be that the equipment or even experimenting with them time and time again, it will be extremely expensive. And even if we try to do like small scale research or projects, so it's going to require a significant investment. Bioprinting organs or tissues or whatever, even in mass production, it would be economically not viable. And secondly, is the point that human tissues are genuinely so complex, and because they have so many types of cells, and then very intricate blood vessels or their
Mhm.
own mechanical and chemical functions, that is something that is very difficult to replicate. Um, very precisely. So that would be one of the major challenges. And also, how we get the cells that we use for 3D printing, sometimes it cannot be enough. I mean, it depends on the patient, but if we are going for patient specific cells, then getting enough would be difficult. And also, if we use stem cells, it can be promising, but then again, it gets ethically and also technically complicated. For example, as I mentioned, if we use embryonic stem cells, which goes towards the reproductive side, so that would have a lot of ethical concerns as well. Additionally, whenever we're 3D printing, first you have to prototype it, and then you keep on getting feedback and testing, and then improving. So
Mhm.
it's something that's not instant, and then the growing and maturing phase, and then the testing phase, it's going to take months, weeks, or even like years. And
Mhm.
also, if we are printing very minute pieces, or very fragile prints, so they're supposed to be soft and delicate, and unstable without proper support. So if we are transporting them or we are implanting them, so even the smallest damage can be very difficult. And also, I think uh, it's not really a problem, but again, bioprinting is something that's not yet widely available.
Mhm.
They're mostly available in advanced labs, or let's say research institutions, or maybe just a few startups that are working towards bioprinting. So it's not accessible fully to hospitals, which are basically general public. And yeah, I think that's it. Those are uh,
Okay.
the issues. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. That was super nice. That was really nice. I was covering of all the points that we talked about as well as your own. Amazing. There's a few in the chat. I'm just going to read them quick because we are completely over scheduled. We're out of time. So we have Harita, and she said that 3D bioprinting can be misused because it could potentially promote dangerous pseudosciences, which is like transhumanism or aspects of noetic science. Amazing. This is exactly what it was in my head that I hoped you guys would say, because this is 3D bioprinting. If it goes too far, what's going to happen? It's going to promote transhumanism. It's going to be so ethically challenging for us to come about it, and it would literally be a sci-fi movie in real life, right? There could be so much misuse that is taking place, but at the same time, like everyone mentioned previously, there's so many good sides of it too. So it's very ethically compromising. We have to make a decision on where we stand. We need to progress with it, but responsibility is a responsibility, because too much can cause a problem, like Harita said. And lastly, we have Haley, and she said that it will be helpful for trying medicine, creating body parts, but it can also be misused in the wrong hands. Yes, it could lead to political problems. It could lead to genetically modified people, animals, with so many things. So there's both good sides and bad sides to it. Anyways, yes, that's amazing. I'm so grateful for you guys for participating in the debate. Thank you so much for attending. I absolutely love this session. I'm also really sorry for going over time. I just yap a lot when I really like talking about something. If you guys have any questions at all, please reach out to me. Oh, I completely